What's up, guys? Welcome back to the OTG YouTube channel. Today we're going to update you on some footwork. The last time you saw Jason and I speaking about this, it was the tactical twister video, and that one was super productive for us. I know a lot of guys that run academies, guys that train SWAT teams, and just in general cops, professional end users, and a lot of civilians really got a lot out of the footwork drills. And what we gave you on that was a very basic, just day one, repeatable method to teach people how to get into a door after they've done any kind of threshold assessment. We've also done videos on pieing, panning, center checking, and then just flowing or button hooking into a room. But those were, 5 to 8 minute videos without a ton of really breaking down things. So what I'm going to do is kind of debunk the magic of like CQB footwork, and I'm going to give you a few more options that are a little bit more cohesive in one video. One of the downsides to making multiple small videos is that people will watch one and not the other, and then they go, oh, well, why didn't you just pan the door? Well, it's because in the video you didn't watch before, numbnuts, we panned the door. So I know people are not going to watch all 65 videos that we have on our channel, so we're just going to remake one that sort of cohesively covers it all. So for context, for anybody watching this, this is not the why behind each technique. This is not the full breakdown on, the history of the pan and how it was invented. This is the what technique it is, and how to conduct it really well and efficiently. It's up to you to go to classes or to use your real world experience to inform what's the why behind this. And I'll get into it a little bit, but this is not going to be an hour-long video. So without further ado, we're going to start slow, work our way up to the fun stuff. The slowest movement is pieing. You'll see this on a lot of like European videos, European companies. You might see cops doing this in solo clearance. What I'm trying to do when I'm pieing is minimize the amount that I am going to be seen by the bad guy and maximize the amount that I can see into a room while moving at a speed that I can process. When we do that, it's really about how our body orients to the environment that we're in. And I like to play off of or rotate off of what we call the near axis, which is basically the part of the threshold that's closest to me. Threshold meaning this doorway. So let's just say somehow magically, like I'm in a video game, like posed and spawned here. I think there might be somebody in this room. There's no other factors going on. There's no long security. We're not worried about rear security. We're just talking about the technique of pieing this door. I personally like to face my hips towards the wall because what that gives me is a hard lateral limit with my leading leg. So with this leg forward, I'm able to lean out over it, put my weight out this way, and create a minimal profile. So when I'm leaning out over this, I'm looking over my optic into this room. If I want to take another step to get a little bit more of that pie, if I stepped out with this leg, I'm not actually seeing that much more, but I am exposing myself to a new angle. That's the opposite of what we want to do. So often when we're pieing, we start with that back leg. So again, and Mitch, if you look at the ground here, this line being what the limit of what they can see, I'm leaning out and over, and I'm taking that back leg, and I'm just rotating it a little bit to where I can see some more, and I only move this leading foot the small amount I need for some stability. So I'm just looking what I can see here, getting little pieces. Now, that takes a long time, and you can see it's uncomfortable, it's awkward. Of course, I'm demoing it on my left-hand side just for the sake of demo. If you're doing this on your offhand side, it's going to be even more awkward, especially if you're not into shoulder swapping. So the cons of this technique are, the time it takes you to do it. It could be that if we're in a team environment, me doing that is cutting off someone else's sector. So there's a lot that goes into this technique about when and why and all that. This is just the how and the what, okay? That's basic pieing. The next thing is a little bit faster, and we call it panning. People ask why panning, what does panning mean? It's like a camera, right? Panning is a lateral movement left and right. We're gonna do that, but we're gonna do it off the same axis of rotation. So in a totally different way, orienting my hips now to the path that I'm going to walk instead of orienting them into the room. If I'm going to walk over there, but I'm going to be looking into here, that's causing my body to do a lot of rotation. My feet are going to carry me that way. My upper body is going to be oriented into the threat. And there's a couple things I have to worry about. In the pieing video, we didn't really talk about it because I had no forward momentum into the room. But in a pan, I have a little bit of forward momentum. I have to keep my gun out of this plane. We call this the plane of the threshold. If my gun pokes through as I'm moving, a guy in this corner is going to see that. And that's kind of defeating the point of what I'm doing. So as I move, I may have to adjust my path, and instead of just walking in a straight line, I may have to actually walk in an arc. So don't think about like which foot goes first or any of that magic sauce. It's literally just, I'm going to walk in a semicircle and I'm going to look into the room, starting with the axis of rotation. So I can see what I can see from here, not much of the room. I'm moving to that axis of rotation and I'm going to walk in an arc while looking over the top of my optic. See what I can see from here, and that's it. At that point, just like if I had finished that whole pie, we're 80% of that room is clear. So, one more time. This is pieing, nice and slow, leading with the rear foot, leaned out, taking my time. Notice how I'm backing away from the door now, trying to get out of that threshold. Okay. And then panning is the same concept, but a lot smoother. That's pretty much it. Any questions? Comment them. They always say teach the camera like it's people, and then I forget. Okay, so those are both slow. Relatively speaking, compared to everything else we're going to do, those are slow. So how do we start to speed up a little bit before we just go balls to the wall and rush the room? Well, the next thing is, Will's going to watch this and get mad. This is kind of a hybrid movement. It's called a center check. Some places call it step center plus 10, or 90 plus 10. Flashing 12, which is my personal favorite, because you're like, so 12. It's literally just getting a free look at the middle of the room before you commit to the actual entry. And it's kind of backwards to show this first because it is an entry method. Okay, so when I show this before showing button hooking or flowing, it can kind of throw the order off, but I see it as a hybrid between deliberate threshold assessment, moving around the outside of the door, versus just getting in the room. So all it is stepping out, looking at the middle of the room, and then stepping into the room. The stepping out portion can be what some teams would call a half pan. So I'm literally just panning to the middle, and this is now my launching point to get in the room. That's all fine and dandy. That just takes a little bit more time. I'm a really big fan of snapping. Basically, it's just 2 steps and getting to the center. Again, the other one's not wrong. For snapping, if any of you ballet fans out there might know, contrapposto, or I think this one is third position, but maybe for my audience I should talk about like Muay Thai or something. But if you turn your feet and plant them, it loads your hips like I'm going to throw a kick, right? So all I'm going to do is I'm going to turn my feet and load my hips the direction that I want to snap, and as I'm moving, I'm to that 90, and I'm using a little bit of this as concealment, and if we're in a hard structure, cover. So instead of ending up all the way out here, 2 steps, right? I'm loading my hips, snapped, and from here I can make my entry. What are the pros and cons? One's a little faster than the other. They get the same goal accomplished. The con of just snapping like I'm talking about is I'm not fully in the door. That's also a pro, but the con is from here, I can really easily go right. I can really easily go left. But if I'm here, I'm kind of limited. I have to continue to take more steps to go to the right and vice versa. So A lot of ways to skin a cat. You can do whichever one of those methods. Don't overthink it. I like the snap because it's less stuff and it's a little bit faster. So from that position, getting into the room looks really easy because it's literally just walking left or walking right. But we're not always going to have the luxury of being able to do those center checks, the pans, the pies, the whatever. But also the movements I'm about to show you plug right into those. And when we end the video, I'll show you what I mean. So let's talk about just flowing into the room. Flowing is also called path of least resistance, or POLR. I'm gonna walk the direction I'm already looking. Holy shit, super simple. Now in previous videos, you've seen we talked about put the leg closest to the door forward, or the inboard versus outboard. Put the inboard leg forward. That's gonna allow me to split this door, and then my next step just takes me right into the room to see the corner. That's a great technique, something we teach every class. But in that video, because it was short and it was focused, we didn't talk about entering from the 45. So I'm gonna show you the normal method, and then I'm gonna show you entering from the 45. We'll talk about some of the pros and cons. You're also gonna notice that I short stock my rifle some, just to talk about, it's not a footwork thing, but just to talk about it. Short stocking is when you take the rifle out of your shoulder, you put it briefly over your shoulder for the half second it takes you to clear the door, it goes right back in. The reason I'm doing that is that my barrel is not sticking through the door before I am. But if you do the movement from the 45, it changes the need for that. So anyway, path of least resistance into the room, inboard leg is forward. As I begin to break the plane to the threshold, I compress the rifle so I'm still outside of it. Stepping through, rifle comes right back out to hit my corner. I'm gonna come out into this room, Mitchell, so they can see that. Sure. So now my inboard leg, closest to the door, stepping to break the plane to the threshold, centered up. And first thing I'm seeing is that corner as I move in to do my scan. Not complicated. What if I came out to the 45? So this is basically touching the wall, 45 off. As I break the plane of the threshold, because my body has now changed its orientation relative to these two pieces of the threshold, the frame, I can actually fit through here pretty easily without having to compress anything. So same thing, this foot's forward. As I'm moving, I haven't broken the plane yet, and now I have that room to lean and get that muzzle through at the same time. Do it coming out. Same thing, inboard foot to the wall, outboard foot steps first, and I'm leaning through, muzzle seeing that corner immediately, as my eyes are as well, and there was no need to short stock. So this is also something we teach in every class, we just haven't put it on YouTube yet. What are the pros and cons of that 45? Well, the pro of it is you see more depth into the room. If, we'll do it from right here. If Mitchell's right where he is, and I haven't done anything deliberate, I can't see him. But if I just step out to the 45, I have the depth into the room before I make my entry. That's a super simple thing to articulate. So it's giving you a little bit more depth, even though you're doing dynamic movements, okay? One of the cons of it is just that, especially if you have other teammates, whatever else stacked up behind you, you're kind of giving them a lane where they feel like they're going to do something, and you have to cut back across them. This is a TTP SOP thing where they have to understand that just because you did a deep corner check and came out to 45, it doesn't mean that they get a lane here to make entry with you as a number one or something like that. Again, this is just me talking about one person's basic techniques. Don't get lost in the sauce about all that little supporting information, okay? What about button hooking? Well, previously we've showed you that, and we talked about that little contrapposto or that angled step. Stepping, turning, stepping, turning, and all that. And that's great stuff. The tactical twister video is still solid. We can eliminate some of that by stepping out to the 45. So instead of starting here, stepping, and I'm in, I'm gonna start out at the 45 a little bit from here, and I've basically eliminated a whole step. I'm stepping, and I'm in. So it's a little bit more efficient, and again, we start from seeing more depth into the room. So that's just a little update for you if all you've done is watch the videos on the differences in the flow and the button hook. If you step out to the 45, if you have the opportunity, if it fits your TTP SOP, that can actually be really helpful. So putting it all together, because people will say, well, I would never just walk into a room blind. Cool, bud. Sometimes you'll have to. What if you're the number 2 and you have to button hook because the first guy did a center check and he flowed? Oh no, I had to rush into the room blind. CQB is dangerous. But I'm gonna show you guys just putting it all together, okay? So the first thing I'm gonna do is pie across and then make my entry. I'm gonna narrate what I'm doing. Leading leg is forward, leaning out over it, using my rear leg to drive my momentum, getting away from the door if I can help it. Now I'm moving backwards away from it because I don't want to be floating in the middle of this space. Okay, I don't see anything. Coming out to the 45, flowing straight in, and that's it. Same thing with a pan. A lot more rapid. Making sure there's nothing in that deep corner, orienting to this threshold, to that axis of rotation. Don't see anything. Basics, right? Center check plus a button hook, or to the most unknown. I've already done a deep corner check. I snap, and now I'm button hooking in. Putting all those pieces together is pretty straightforward. It's pretty simple stuff. People overcomplicate it. It's not something that isn't fixed just by practice or by rehearsal. So the tactical twister video is fantastic. Definitely think you should go watch it. It gives you a repeatable set of like teaching points, but there's so much more to it than just that. So pieing, panning, center checking, flowing, button hooking, stepping out to the 45, you should be good at all those things and then make it fit into your TTP, SOP, whatever you want to call it. Now, if you don't have a TTP or SOP, or you've not been to a class with us, and you maybe don't understand what all these different things mean, then I would say come out to a course. Well, we teach stuff to civilians. We teach a lot of cops. We do have military contracts as well. This is all basic stuff that everyone deserves to know and understand. So check out our course schedule online, oriontraininggroup.com. If you are interested in solo classes, duo classes, it's 1 and 2 man movement, small team, which is 3 to 5, or even full team, which is 6+. We cover some breaching, some flashbangs. We have shooting classes. We got basically the works to make you a modern American rifleman. So check it out, oriontraininggroup.com. Thanks so much for watching the video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, tell your friends if you got something useful out of this, because as a small business, we don't grow if people don't know. So thanks for watching.